Now, I know they call me wide receiver one, but seems like the Packers need some secondary help in the playoffs. So I guess you can call me CB1. Surprised I caught that. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Podcast, the podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, we need to talk Grossi. And today, what are we going to talk about? It is one Jaire Alexander. Because, of course, a few days ago, it was revealed that Jaire Alexander will be missing the rest of the season as he is going to undergo surgery on that PCL tear. The good news is that it's not major reconstructive surgery, and instead it's just going to be for minor repairs and trying to alleviate some swelling and some pain, these symptoms that he's been experiencing for months. And what I want to do, because I feel like the conversation regarding Jaire has gotten way out of hand, and I feel like it has devolved into just not so great things. That was good analysis, Tom. Great job. This is why I have the YouTube channels. But seriously, the conversations have ranged from, oh, that's too bad that he's not playing, to, oh, he's obviously hamming it up so he doesn't have to play because he already got paid a couple years ago, to, oh my God, cut this bum. He doesn't deserve to be on the team. And of course, just like everything, there is some nuance here. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about the injury. I want to talk about where the Packers are with or without Jaire Alexander, what options they have going forward, especially in 2025 and upcoming season, and give you my opinion on where I stand with this whole Jaire Alexander debacle.
Where is Ja?
So, with all that being said, let's get started. Back in 2022, Jaire Alexander signed a 4-year, $84 million deal. And at the time, yeah, this sounded pretty darn good. Jaire Alexander, a former first-round pick, had been dominant his first few years in Green Bay and got this name recognition of, oh, he's one of the best corners in the league. In fact, heading into this season, he was the third highest paid corner, and he was originally the first until Jalen Ramsey and Pat Surtain got their major deals. Now it's Jalen Ramsey making $24.1 million in this 24 season, Pat Surtain at $24 million, and Jaire Alexander at $21 million. Now, you look at a Jalen Ramsey contract, right? He's 30 years old and is getting these mega bucks, which when the Dolphins did this, I was a little trepidatious because Jalen Ramsey's getting a bit older. I don't think he's as good as he was. Just ask Devontae Adams on that one play. But a guy like Pat Surtain, who's sitting at 24 and is having a phenomenal year and could be Defensive Player of the Year, he is absolutely deserving of that contract. And for Jaire, I think Packers fans were just waiting to see what Jaire were we going to get. After his shoulder injury, obviously his stats had been going down a bit, but he was still really damn good. And heading into this season, we just wanted to see more of that. And considering how well the defense has been playing this year, especially the run defense, which finally, I was really excited to see how Jaire was going to be a part of that in the secondary when we went out and got guys like Xavier McKinney to make that safety unit so much better. Can we do the same with corners? And Eric Stokes coming back, and we're going to see how that was going to play out. And ultimately, we didn't get to see it because the past 2 years, Jaire Alexander has only played 14 games, which obviously is not very good. He's been dealing with a litany of injuries. Of course, the most recent one, this PCL tear that he suffered back against Jacksonville in late October. He wound up coming back after the bye week against the Bears, but he only played 10 snaps before he said, nope, can't do it anymore. And since then, the conversation about Jaire Alexander has spanned from, okay, I can't wait for him to come back, to what the hell is going on? Because during these past couple of months, the Packers have been so secretive about what's going on with Jaire Alexander. And unfortunately, the Packers kind of handle this with every single player. Any single time there's disciplinary stuff or any single time that there's an injury, Matt LaFleur and the Packers usually keep really quiet. And I get it. Obviously, you want to protect their privacy, and at the same time, you don't want to tip anything to opponents. And Jaire Alexander was a full participant in some of those practices for the past 2 months. But every single time Sunday rolled around or it was game time, he wasn't playing. And so, unfortunately, without any communication from the Packers, this just led to rampant rumors that were going around. People commenting maybe this is a disciplinary action. You had reporters who were asking, is this just based on the field performance? Is it based off of injury? Is there something else going on? And for the most part, Matt LaFleur is pretty tight-lipped. He did come out recently saying it was just because the injury on the field, and the Packers could have handled this differently, especially Matt LaFleur saying, hey, this is why he's not able to go. There is nothing more than that. It is just this issue. He's a full participant in practice. He doesn't feel like he's ready. Have a nice day. But the problem is because they're a little bit tight-lipped, and on top of that, because it's Jaire Alexander, who is an eccentric person, whether you had him going out as a captain against the Carolina Panthers and getting suspended for that, and there's always rumors about Matt LaFleur and Jaire Alexander not really getting along. I don't really care about that, because what I'm caring about is what we have known proof for. And the proof is that Jaire Alexander is going to be missing the season. He tried to get better over these past couple months, even practicing, but unfortunately, with a PCL tear, his knee was not responding as well as he would like to, and unfortunately is going in for surgery now. So, with Jaire Alexander's season done, let's talk about what the Packers can do moving forward, because that is a very interesting conversation. Because we want to talk about 2025 and the Packers defense, you have to talk about that secondary. We also have to talk about the pass rush too, which is lacking to say the least, but this Packers defense is much improved under Jeff Hafley. The run defense has been pretty damn good. Edgerrin Cooper has been an absolute stud. Quay Walker, right before his injury those past few weeks, was actually playing pretty darn well. And of course, Xavier McKinney has been a rock star back there in the secondary. And taking a look at what the Packers currently have at corner, we have Keyshawn Nixon, right, who was a returner and has played corner for the past couple of seasons. And I know there was a lot of smut upon his name, but he has been playing pretty darn well. You have Carrington Valentine, who was a diamond in the rough, a former 7th round pick, who is now a full-time starter, and he's been playing well. And then there's Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes, who has come back from major injuries, has not played for a while, and he has not had his greatest season. What I will say, though, is these past few weeks, he has been playing much, much better, and you just gotta hope that things can turn around. But it is far from concrete what kind of player Eric Stokes is going to be. So to say that there's uncertainty with our corner room would be a massive understatement. I like Keyshawn Nixon a lot. I like Carrington Valentine a lot. And Eric Stokes, it remains to be seen. We'll see if he winds up getting a new contract. But Jaire Alexander, when he is on the field, statistically, the Packers defense is better. Without Jaire Alexander, the corners and the passing rating not looking so good. But when Jaire is back on the field, yes, it's not great, it's not elite, but he's still a pretty damn good player. And so looking just at Jaire's value as a player on the field, he makes the Packers defense better. So now the question goes, okay, so maybe we want to bring him back. What would that look like? Well, if the Packers were to bring back Jaire Alexander in 2025, it would cost them $17.5 million. He has $18 million in dead cap, which cannot go away. A big shout out to Ken Engels, who's always doing the work there on the salary cap. That cannot go away. They're going to have to suffer with that one way or another. They could pay that all right up front in 2025, or they could spread that out and maybe $10 million this year and $8 million in 2026. But at the end of the day, that $18 million is already gone. It's just a matter of, do they want to pay Jaire Alexander more money, which, by the way, there's no more guaranteed money in his contract. So if they decide to release him, they'd take the cap hit. But again, there's no more guaranteed money besides that 18.1 mil that is just dead cap already because it's already been paid to Jaire Alexander. It just hasn't come out of the Packers' books yet. So he would cost $17.5 million in 2025. And looking at that number, there's some context here. One, if we're taking a look at the top paid corners just from 2024, he would rank 13th on that list heading into 2025 as the 13th highest paid corner, which is not too bad. In addition, if the Packers decide, hey, we're going to keep you next year and we're going to keep you the year after, it would be $19.5 million in 2026. So these numbers aren't insanely high. He made more money this year, but at the end of the day, you do have to worry about injuries, and the Packers are infamous for letting guys go, and they'd rather let them go a year early rather than a year late. You saw everything that happened with David Bakhtiari and that injury, which was catastrophic. Bakhtiari is still trying to play, and unfortunately, his knee hasn't responded well to treatment. And so with Jaire, I don't think they're the same situation in any way, shape, or form, but the Packers are usually very hesitant when it comes to injuries. And as we all know, whether you want to ask Jordy Nelson or Clay Matthews, they will just let guys go. And Jaire Alexander may be a casualty of that because only playing in 14 games the past 2 seasons is not a great stat. So that's one option, that you decide to keep Jaire Alexander, pay him $17.5 million, but that might be a little too rich for the Packers' blood. Now, I will say the Packers are going to be in a very fortunate situation going into next season. They are going to have over $62 million in cap space, which is pretty damn good. The Packers, they obviously made a splash in free agency this past offseason, bringing in Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. Both guys have been phenomenal for the Packers. And taking a look at 2025, what the Packers' biggest needs are going to be in the draft and free agency are pass rusher, corner, and probably another wide receiver either day 2 or day 3. And so right off the bat, there should be some flags going up going, wait a minute, we are going to need another corner. Why would we get rid of Jaire Alexander? So one of the options here might be to restructure. I don't know what that would look like. That would force Jaire Alexander to come to the table, the Packers to come to the table and hash that out. And quite honestly, I don't know if that is going to happen. The other scenario, of course, would to just be release Jaire Alexander, eat the dead cap. It's going to be $18 million and call it a day. But the problem is that now you're rocking with Eric Stokes, which again is an unknown, and on top of that, Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine, which in terms of just depth alone, doesn't speak too highly about the corner room. So what can the Packers do? Well, in free agency, they can target a guy like DJ Reed. They're going to have money to go out and get a corner if they want to. DJ Reed has been playing pretty damn well, and I would imagine the Packers would make a move for him, especially if Jaire Alexander is gone. On top of that, you could bring back a veteran like Rasul Douglas, because the Packers, of course, traded him to the Bills, but he is scheduled to be a free agent after this season. But other than that, the free agent market doesn't look so great in terms of corner, and the Packers might decide to address either wide receiver, or they might decide and go and get a pass rusher. And so then you look at the draft and where the Packers are going to be drafting. They are going to be drafting later in the first round because they've already made the playoffs, right? So at bare minimum, you're looking most likely in the 20s, hopefully 32, but at the bare minimum, it's going to be a high first round draft pick. And taking a look at corner prospects this year, the Packers might have to trade up to go get the guy that they want. And personally, I don't know how comfortable I feel about going and getting a rookie where we have Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, maybe Eric Stokes, and that's it for our corners. That is a pretty bare corner room, and I would feel a little trepidatious heading into 2025 when the Packers, if they already haven't won the Super Bowl, are going to be making a run trying to win a Super Bowl. Because the Packers, obviously in free agency last year being so aggressive, and with all this cap space, they can make some big moves in 2025 and fill up those holes like a pass rusher, wide receiver, and or corner to try and go all the way. Now, at the same time, at the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that Jalen Ramsey is 30, and that is a little concerning. Jaire Alexander is going to turn 28 in February. So the Packers might be looking at this contract and going, hey, it might just be easier to let him go and have a nice day. The problem is that secondary already needs to be improved, and losing Jaire Alexander, who at the bare minimum is a good corner, that is going to be a problem, and the Packers are going to have to address that. So even if they go and get a DJ Reed, they're still going to have to address corner in the draft or somewhere else. And while Carrington Valentine falling to the 7th round and being a starter is fantastic, that doesn't happen very often. And so the Packers are going to have a need here. And if you're asking me personally, I would love the Packers were able to restructure Jaire Alexander's contract, because it just makes sense to keep a guy who knows the scheme. Yes, there is that injury concern, but at $17.5 million, I just don't think the Packers are going to buy into that, which means that there's going to have to be a restructure. And so that is the thing I can't get over, and I don't know if either of those sides are going to come to the table. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jaire Alexander did play his last snap as a Packer. I think it would be super disappointing, and I think, again, highlighting a massive need for the Packers. But at the end of the day, Goody's going to make the final decision here about who's going to be on this roster and if a guy like Jaire is going to get paid. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about was the conversation surrounding Jaire Alexander, because I think this season it has been really interesting to see how fans have responded to these Green Bay Packers. Last year, I think there was very few expectations, right? We didn't know what we had in Jordan Love. We didn't know what kind of team they were going to be. And for a good chunk of that season, especially around the middle, they were not good. They were bad. Jordan wasn't playing his best ball. Wide receivers weren't playing their best. The offense wasn't clicking, and it just wasn't looking great on defense either. However, they were able to rally. They beat the Cowboys, almost beat the 49ers, who were the NFC champions that year. And heading into the season, there were a lot more expectations. The Packers even relayed those expectations when I was talking to Mark Murphy, because he said, hey, we're going out and getting guys like Xavier McKinney, like Josh Jacobs, because the Packers are usually pretty quiet in free agency, especially if we're going back to the Ted Thompson days. But we also know, as of 2018, Goody has no problem going out and getting free agents if they deem it necessary. And here, they're going to have to go shopping for a corner. They're going to have to go shopping for a pass rusher, potentially a wide receiver. But those are 3 positions of need that they're going to have to address, and I know that they will in the draft. We'll see if they decide to spend some money in free agency as well, and if they deem that Jaire Alexander is worth the potential risk. But going back to expectations, and this was even repeated by Jordan Love, They are no longer going to be the underdog heading into any of this. And I know that's ironic considering they're going to likely be the 7 seed heading into the playoffs, and it's going to be a battle to get to the Super Bowl. But with those expectations, more criticism has been thrown at the Packers. You saw it all offseason when Jordan Love became the highest paid quarterback for a hot second before Dak Prescott did, and people saying, oh, he's a bust, he's not good. And Jordan Love has not had his best season, though these past few games he has not been playing terribly. I know that Vikings game, especially in the beginning, was really, really rough, but they looked better at the end. And ultimately, we got a couple of receivers right now who can't catch the freaking fracking ball. So it's not all on Jordan Love. But again, when you get big numbers there, like a contract, you're going to get more scrutiny. And the Packers are also finishing 3rd in their division. The freaking Lions and the Vikings are competing for the 1 seed and the NFC North on Sunday. The Packers have lost a total of 5 games, 4 within the division and 1 against the Eagles, all teams that they could potentially play again in the postseason. But there's also been some major improvements. Josh Jacobs has been great. Xavier McKinney has been great. That rushing defense has been so good. It's been better than as long as I can remember, because for years and years and years, that run defense was so bad. And yes, you've gone throughout the entire season and go, okay, here are the holes. The pass rush, that has to improve. It has to get better. You look at the secondary, especially corner, that has to get better. And yes, getting another receiver probably wouldn't be the end of the world, but I don't think that's going to be their main priority. So regardless of what happens in the playoffs, and I still think the Packers can make a run, Packers fans in particular, it just seems like there's been such this negativity when it's surrounding Jaire Alexander. Matt LaFleur is getting crap now. And listen, I want to be very clear because, again, this is nuance. There is a difference between criticizing your team, wanting them to play better, and just being a complete doomer, blow it all up, why are we even going to the playoffs? That one doesn't make sense to me. I think it's one thing to say like, hey, I don't think the Packers are going to do well in the playoffs. I think that they might wind up losing X game or against this team. And okay, yeah, that's fine. You could have your opinion. I have my opinions, and we could just all go along our merrily way. The thing that I can't get over is that this has been happening throughout the season, is that fans, even in like the first or second quarter, is like, blow it all up, put Malik Willis in, the game's over. Jaire Alexander, he doesn't want to play. He's faking it. Matt LaFleur doesn't know what he's doing. Goody's a terrible GM because he mismanaged this whole secondary debacle, even though he found a 7th round pick as a starter. But that's fine. We're going to ignore that. I just don't understand that perspective because why are we watching the game then? Because the Packers, are they a perfect team? Far from it. Is there a perfect team this year? Nope. And I think the fact that Packers have gone toe-to-toe with those teams that they have lost to shows that this is a young team on the rise. They are the youngest team in the NFL, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but holy crap, how are you not excited about that? Even if the Packers lose in the wild card round against the Eagles or whoever the hell they're going to play, this team has a really bright future. Jeff Hafley's in his first year as a defensive coordinator, and he has made that defense better. Personnel has to execute better, 1,000,000%. Matt LaFleur's play calling, absolutely, can be criticized until the cows come home. Goody has not done a perfect job. But good God, man, to transition from a Hall of Fame quarterback again, which, by the way, I think that panned out pretty well, to move on to Jordan Love, to make it into the 7th seed last year, beat the Cowboys, then to make it into the playoffs again, even though half your division is competing for the 1 seed, I think we need to take a big old step back and look at this objectively and go, hey, this Packers team, did they meet the expectations for some fans? Absolutely not. I walked into the season thinking, yeah, they're going to win a Super Bowl. And guess what? It's still possible. It's also possible that they get blown out in the wild card round. And you know the first thing I'm going to do besides cry a little bit when they get eliminated or if they get eliminated is I'm going to look towards the future and go, damn, we are in a great position here because this is a young team. There's only a few holes. Jaire Alexander, he is part of that. And whether they restructure him or release him, the Packers, they don't have too many holes that they need to fill to be right back in it. They've been able to make the postseason even with the lack of production from some wide receivers, from their pass rush, from their secondary. And I think that's super duper exciting to look forward to. And again, that doesn't mean you can't criticize your team. I criticize the Packers all the time because I want them to win. But when we're sitting here going, Jaire Alexander is not playing intentionally, and it's all this crap being thrown at him, even though he's practicing, and then that goes to LaFleur, that does not make sense to me because this guy tried to practice for 2 months straight. Now he has to go get surgery because he tore his PCL. And personally, I just don't think he deserves to get attacked by that. I hope he comes back to the team because statistically, they are better when he is on the field, and the Packers also need to address corner. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Rant over. You know, it's funny at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the YouTube and Patreon members for supporting this channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack, go.